Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, sponsored by SportBuff. I'm your host, Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. Cliff, for the number of the week is 643. That's all I can say, buddy.
643.
643 for the first time in 643 days. It is Alouettes Game Day.
Wow. It's just, man, after all this time off, after everything that's been going on for the past year and a half, to think that we're finally actually going to get an actual game day. Wow. It's a little overwhelming. It's definitely exciting. It's unfortunate that it's not here in Montreal, but you know what? That's fine. It's just going to help build up that anticipation even more to finally see a live game. But just knowing that we can at least tune into TSN, RDS, ESPN, and be able to watch the Alouettes play actual football, like meaningful football, that is exciting. That is beyond exciting.
Yep, and if you happen to be driving also, for the very first time, Sean Campbell, the new English radio voice of the Alouettes, be listening to him on TSN 690. I think because it's an Elks home game, it won't be the Alouettes broadcast on Sirius XM, but still, you should be. I think the Olympic blackout has been dropped. I think they had an Olympic blackout, so you couldn't listen to them in the U.S. You can now. I think you can now listen to TSN 690 again. Get your taste of Sean and Mark. So. Should be good. It's
going to be exciting.
Yeah.
That's where it comes down to, is the fact that any way you slice it, however you choose to enjoy the game, just to know that Alouettes football is back. We finally get to see everything that we've been hearing about, talking about, finally seeing it live, finally actually seeing it in action. It's exciting. There's just no other way to put it. It's truly exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And because we are playing the Elks this week, where we have one of the guys from the Turf District podcast, Mike Superfan Knudsen. We'll be talking with him very shortly and get his perspective on what's coming up this week for the Alouettes. Alouettes football, baby. I'm pumped, man. But I'm pumped, but I'm also a little bit apprehensive because, yes, there were a lot of positives that came out of week one in the CFL. It wasn't as bad as football as we thought it was going to be. To me, it kind of mirrors what the NFL was for their first week because they didn't have preseason either last year. The Alouettes have been very, very lucky when it comes to not having some of the injuries that some of these other teams had during training camp. Mm-hmm. But again, as I said, I'm a little bit apprehensive because even though with the Alouettes having having game film on the Elks that they could look at this week, and even and the Elks not having any Owls game tape, I don't want it to end up being like. I'm curious to know, like a preseason game. I'm curious to know how this team actually is going to play when it comes to live football. Mm-hmm. And I'm scared. I want them to play well. I want them to win, obviously, but I'm still apprehensive, dude. I really, really am.
Well, it's completely understandable. I mean, these guys have only faced each other as far as in scrimmages and training camp sessions and practice sessions. Like, they have not hit another person other than like their own teammates, and even then that's not really hitting.
Yeah,
like this is you're basically going from 0 to 100 now, like it's being in an actual game time environment, and this is where you're going to find out who's going to shine, who really belongs on this team, because before it was all just speculation. Now you're actually going to see these guys in action. We expect a certain level of athleticism and talent from every one of these guys, and whether or not they'll be able to fulfill it, we won't know until that ball gets kicked off and we finally get to see them truly in action. It's exciting, and yeah, I can understand the sort of apprehension you've got with this because you don't want anybody to get hurt. You just want them to go out, play their game. If they can get the win, that'd be amazing because, like I said, we haven't seen an Alouettes win since November of 2019, which is unbelievable to think about. Mm-hmm. So, in a way, it's kind of good that they've had a chance now to sort of look at the film versus like the Elks film versus the Ottawa Red Blacks. They kind of got an idea of what they're walking into. It's not completely blind. In that sense, I think they'll be prepared. I think they're just going to be excited to get out on the field and actually play some real, honest to goodness football. It's going to be very interesting to see. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a little nerve wracking, but God, is it Saturday yet? Can it be Saturday now, please?
Yeah,
this is crazy. Why are you making us wait with extra days in the week? What the hell? What the hell?
I wish it could. But it's still going to be amazing to see this game on TV. Again, my apprehension also goes to, the Owls' history out west. As you and I both know, you get really past Saskatchewan, it's tough in Alberta. It really is for the Owls when it comes to football and wins in Alberta and in BC. So, yeah. It's obviously with this team, we look at our rosters. We were talking about it last week, and again, nothing can really stand out to us, can it? We have nothing to see.
No, because again, we know who's going to be on the roster. We know who's on the practice roster. That's it. I mean, yes, we know Vernon Adams is a fantastic quarterback. We know William Stanback is a terrific running back. We know these receivers they're fire, as the kids say. But we still have not seen them in action in 2021. We really don't know what we're getting in a sense. We have an idea. We've got a concept in mind of what we can expect from this team, but we really, truly don't know what we've got. And there's so many nuances now, like these new sort of wrinkles that are in the mix. We don't know if it's going to work or not, and we won't know until Saturday night when we're watching the game. And yeah, it's bizarre. It's there's just really no other way to describe it other than it's a bizarre feeling to not entirely know what you're going into. But at the same time, like I feel confident knowing that the team that's been assembled is going to be a very competitive team. How competitive, we won't know. Obviously, only time is going to tell that. But I look at this roster. I don't see very many, if any, weak spots. I think Danny Machocha wanted to improve this team. He wanted to make sure this is a very strong, competitive team. And I think by and large, he's done that. Like, he's taken the existing pieces that were in place and augmented them. He's helped surround the talent that he's got with other talent.
Yeah.
In that, if someone goes down, you're not worried like, oh crap, our middle linebacker just went down and we don't have anyone to replace him.
Right.
There's a ton of talent in that area. There's a lot of talented players in the secondary. The offensive line for years was a work in progress, but now I think that work has come to fruition, and I feel very confident in this offensive line being able to protect Vernon Adams when he drops back and makes a pass. I feel extremely confident in the receivers that are in the lineup and their ability to make plays happen. I mean, I look at this team and I definitely feel good as far as what I see. I think there's definitely a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to like. To me, right now, like, it's just a matter of, I think on paper, this is a very talented team, but football games are not played on paper. We need to see these guys in action, and knowing that we are going to see these guys in action is beyond exciting as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Before we go any further, as we had last week, we had a giveaway thanks to our sponsor, our presenting sponsor, SportBuff, and we got some. I want to thank everybody who entered into the contest. Obviously, there can only be one winner. We will have some more stuff. I think. Yeah, why not, Cliff? I think we'll have something else that we're going to give away, and we'll announce the new contest here in the next couple of minutes, preferably with a better hashtag.
Yeah, that hashtag was a little tricky, and maybe that's why like maybe if we had a little bit better hashtag, maybe we've gotten double the participants. But we definitely appreciate everybody who did follow along and interact with us showed us the love. And we're extremely excited to be able to give away this really, really nice Alouettes cap. And there's more to come, folks. I mean, so definitely stick around. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, following us on all the socials, checking out the podcast and showing the love, sharing it with everybody. We definitely appreciate each and every one of you that's been listening to the show, that's, telling your friends about the show and all that. It means a lot to all of us. Exactly.
And without further ado, the group of Capper and Pine made sure that they checked all the numbers more than once to make sure this was done, and it was all done in the up and up. We want to announce that Pete Fuertes, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. He is at PGFIII on Twitter. You are the winner of this gorgeous cap, as Cliffy said. So we would be reaching out to you on social media to get your all your deets so we can get this cap out to you. And I guess without further ado, we might as well go ahead and announce the second one, Cliff. We are going to be giving away this week, again, thanks to our presenting sponsor, SportBuff, this gorgeous Alouettes t-shirt. We will be putting up something on social, which you will be able to see what we're going to be giving away. And this week, the same as before, with the tweet that we put out, or if you retweet respond to any of our tweets that are on our social media on Twitter, which is at Alouettes Flightdeck, and use the hashtag SportBuffContest, you'll be entered into the draw to win this t-shirt. So look out on social media. You will see what we're going to be giving away. And again, we will put what the hashtag will be. But it is hashtag SportBuffContest. And good luck.
Hopefully that'll be a little less confusing, a few less F's to have to worry about. So, like, what the F's, y'all?
Exactly. Yes. Shout out to Manon for making sure we knew that they were, what the F. So, yeah. Hey, Cliff, the Alouettes came across some news. I know you wanted to talk about it because we mentioned specifically last week about, the Alouettes having two kickers for the longest time since the late 80s, since 1986 on the roster. The Alouettes came out with, I think it was nice to see a story about our two kickers, and they actually were able to assign and let us know who was going to be doing what, right?
Absolutely. Because that was one of the questions we had was, like, first of all, once the initial shock of, oh, wow, two kickers on the team, no double duty. Like, that in itself is a story as far as I'm concerned. And one of the many wrinkles that this 2021 Alouettes team is going to provide for us. Now we know between Joseph Zima and David Cote who's going to be handling the kicking duties and who's going to be handling the punting duties. It was made officially official via the Alouettes Twitter that David Cote, who is a 2021 draft pick by the Montreal Alouettes, will be our official place kicker. And Joseph Zima, who was taken in the global draft this year, all the way from Australia, he is our new punter. So make sure you follow these guys on social media as well. We can send out the links for that as well. Show them the love, because now we know officially these are our guys. When it comes to that coffin corner punt or that hopefully game-winning field goal.
Yes.
Now you know who's the men, I should say, behind the jerseys.
Should be, yeah. It should, usually if you've been a long-time Alouette, I think one of the names you remember the most is Terry Baker, and then Damon Duval. Nothing.
Sean White.
Yeah, Sean White. There's one that got away. And Boris Bede. So these are your guys this year. So I'm curious to see. It'll be different. It really will be different But if I'm not mistaken, Cliff, isn't this seem to be becoming a norm a little bit in the CFL, where two kickers seem to be taking up more than one roster spot?
Yeah, that's been the norm for a number of teams for a number of years. I mean, like I said, it's just the Alouettes that seemed to be their sort of specialty, if you will, was to ensure that in order to have an extra roster spot available, why have two kickers when you can just have one guy that can do both? And that was always the key, was making sure that whoever it was that was the kicker could also punt the ball as well.
Right.
But with everything seeming to be new for the most part with this edition of the Montreal Alouettes, gone is that particular rule. And what's interesting to me is we've got a national kicker, field goal kicker, and the global spot has been taken up by our Australian punter.
Yeah.
So it just adds a new wrinkle to things as far as, whether, like, God forbid injuries happen or whatnot, like how we replace national players, for example, making sure that it's part of the ratio. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. Like I'm going to be a little thrown off. I'm sure the first time I see both Cote and Zima doing their thing, just because I'm so used to seeing just one guy do both.
Yeah, who's going to get the rights to the practice net?
Yes, that's right. That's true. This is very true.
Are they going to go rock, paper, scissors? Is that what they're going to do, or draw straws?
Or do they bring two nets? Have we arrived at that point? Has that actually been part of the equation now that we have to worry about practice nets for our kickers?
Oh.
That's incredible. It's incredible to think, but I guess we'll see, folks. I guess we'll see what happens in Edmonton this coming Saturday.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see. And I mean, I think kickers did pretty good this week. With the first ever points, scored by a Japanese, another global. There's right there. There's another global player who made an impact during this week. So it was interesting to get the transactions and the injury reports. It's not something that we normally see was sent out openly by the CFL, by the teams, or the CFL rather. What were your thoughts? Not necessarily who was on them, but what were your thoughts on how the Alouettes did what they had to do? Because I think it's mandated by the league, has to be out by a certain time. Each day that they practice. What were your initial thoughts? I mean, did anything really stand out? Us again, not necessarily player wise, but did anything stand out to you how it was done, or did it just seem like every other league does, like the NFL does and stuff like that, especially when it comes to this new thing called betting?
Exactly. And to me, like, that's key, is transparency more than anything else, is letting people know who's injured and what you comes to expect, especially too once single game betting does truly take this league over, which I have no doubt in my mind that it will. Reports like this are going to become tantamount to ensuring that people are paying attention not just to their favorite team, but basically all the teams, because you want to know who's going to be playing, and if anyone's hurt, before you go ahead and invest a certain amount of money on a game or on a prop bet or anything like that. You want to have as much information as possible, up to and including the injury reports. To me, it's a nice surprise, quite frankly, to see. Like, at least okay, so and so got dinged up, and maybe he's taking a personal day to recover from his injury, or a certain someone, he's kind of favoring this leg or whatnot, and you just to me, it's all informative. It's all part of making fans a part of the experience, like just getting them to truly invest in the team. Because now, if you want to place a bet on a team, ideally you want to know exactly who's going to be in the starting lineup, who's going to be out there on the field, and this is a great way of just adding to that.
Yeah.
To me, it's something that I won't say it's crucial, but it's definitely a very nice tool to have in the arsenal, being able to understand who might be playing or may not be playing, because that way you adjust your thinking accordingly and adjust your betting accordingly. I mean, I personally, I don't see a negative to it. And even if you're not a bettor, just knowing, okay, is your favorite player on this list, and why, and how long has he been on the list, and so on. Or if say he had a great game, but then next week at practice he's now all of a sudden favoring his elbow. Okay, what happened?
Yeah,
and is this going to affect him going forward? And how, like, to what extent is this going to affect the team, as well as roster decisions and who comes off the practice roster and so on and so forth. There's a lot of variables to this, and I'm really curious to see where it's going and just how far this will help enhance the viewing experience for Canadian football fans.
Since we're talking about the injury report, at least I have to ask, because it was a topic of conversation in week 1 of the CFL. What are your thoughts on the Michael Riley thing? Do you think that there was something nefarious going on, like some do, or were you in the camp like I was, where it was a game time decision and that's all it was?
Well, I want to believe really truly that it was a game time decision. I understand why a lot of the betting folks would be up in arms over this and feeling that maybe the Lions were kind of untowards as far as the truthfulness as to whether or not Michael Riley could be playing, or was he going to play? Should he be playing? What, like that? It's a very important decision because that's your starting quarterback right there.
Yeah.
Knowing that, especially knowing throughout the week, like the Lions didn't hide that he was injured or that he was not 100%.
Right.
Perhaps they weren't exactly honest to what degree it was, because they kind of gave the impression, okay, he's not 100%, but he should still be able to play. He should still be the starter. And he was announced as the starting quarterback until Nathan Rourke takes snaps. And then you're wondering what the heck's going on. Where's Riley? And then he was out for the entire first half of the game. Then second half comes back. Rick Campbell, the head coach of the BC Lions, he didn't seem to know what was going on until Michael Riley jogs past him and ends up playing the game.
I know.
And then you're sitting there looking like, what the heck is going on? So I understand why a lot of people were kind of, pissed off, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Or at least confused, would be another way of putting it. To me, I don't think there was any malice intended by the BC Lions. I don't think they were trying to play mind games or anything like that. Like, to me, especially not during the first game of the season, I think that would be a very bold thing to try and do. I really truly think it really was a game time decision as far as whether or not I really want to believe that they thought Michael Riley could go, and sometimes you think maybe you can go and maybe you think you're okay enough to play. Then you get out and you do the warm up, and all of a sudden something just doesn't feel right, and you're like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then, or he gets some sort of treatment for his, I think it was his elbow that was bothering him, and all of a sudden he thought, okay, now I'm good to go. I think I'm okay. I can do this. And whether or not they should have let him play, that's another debate altogether. But he came in and he actually helped engineer the comeback towards against the Rough Riders, and really made the game very competitive. So
yeah, and it wasn't like how the New England Patriots always did it with Tom Brady, where he was always questionable.
Right.
So,
and we know the Patriots were not opposed to untoward things or sort of skirting around laws and loopholes and things of that nature. So. But I would not compare the BC Lions to the New England Patriots in that regards.
No,
I truly believe this was a game time decision.
Yeah.
Riley thought he could go. Turns out he couldn't. Somehow managed to feel a little bit better, give it a shot, see if it worked. To me, it was more kind of a very calculated risk on the BC Lions' part to let him play. But I mean, it almost worked. The Lions almost made the comeback and almost won the game. I mean, but that's football, folks. I mean, that's just the way it works out sometimes.
Yep. Riley was throwing quackers like in the game Duck Hunt. So, I mean, yeah. But either way, I said I don't think there was any malice in it. Alouettes had, I don't know if it was a surprise or not, but the Alouettes, there really was only one major transaction that the Alouettes had as of we are taping this. With I think tomorrow's going to be a walkthrough on Friday. Friday walkthrough, and then Thursday, I think a full practice. Alexander Charette was re-signed by the Alouettes, wide receiver. out of Guelph. I think my first question to you is why?
Why not? I mean, a talented national receiver who's been in the league for a couple of years, former draft pick of the Alouettes, fourth round pick if I'm not mistaken. Didn't catch on here for any number of reasons. Went to Toronto, played there for a couple of years. For whatever reason, it didn't work out there as well. May have just been just a numbers game. I mean, especially when it comes to national talent, it's always a tough road to hoe sometimes. You think you're going to get the breaks, but at the end of the day, there's so many talented players, especially at the receiver position, that sometimes you just end up on the outside looking in. And I thought it was great that the Alouettes were able to repatriate him. As I've said, this team looks really good when it comes to national receiver. You've got guys like Kion Julian Grant, Rashawn Simonize, Chris Osei-Kusi, and now you've got Alex Charette back in the fold. Mm-hmm. That's really, I mean, just to have that kind of depth is exciting. And it kind of tells me, too, that Kahari Jones and Robert Gordon are finding ways to get as many receivers in the mix as possible. And if you want to make a national receiver, like maybe you get two national receivers out on the field, who knows? But any chance we can get some talented receivers out on the field, and if they're nationals as well, to me, that's a win-win all day long.
And it also looks like the Alouettes were playing with less men on the roster for them to be able to sign him and not have to release anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, and I got a feeling too, like after practice on Thursday, we're probably going to end up seeing a couple guys maybe added to the one-game injury list, which is going to create opportunities as well. Mm-hmm, that's sort of the finessing, if you will, of the roster.
Yes.
And that's well within the rights of each CFL team to do so.
Oh, for sure. It makes me wonder with everybody that's currently on the practice roster why somebody wasn't brought up, because I think you mentioned somebody. You mentioned, I think, Chris Osei-Kusi, right? So yep. I mean, he's on the practice roster. Why wasn't he brought up?
And maybe he still will be. I mean, like I said, until we know for sure what's happening tomorrow,
we'll see once we finally get our very first depth chart.
Oh man,
that will be interesting to see. Because I think that will lay out a lot of what the thinking of Coach Kahari and what the team will look like, who's going to back up whom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to, if when BJ comes out, who's going to come in for him? Same thing. Same thing with, as an example, with Rashawn Simonize, because he's going to be the starting national wide receiver. But now that you bring in Charette, he's also national. So
yep.
It'll be interesting to see. It'll be very interesting. I said that's the next thing that we know, that game day is just that close. Is when we see.
Yeah. When we finally get that depth chart, that's going to be like, holy cow, this is really real. Like that's just it. Like you finally see where all the pieces are going to fall into place. Mm-hmm. And my God, I mean, that's going to be exciting. And then finally, when kickoff happens, mm-hmm. like that's when it all comes to pass. And man, it's exciting.
Exactly.
I mean, this whole week has been nothing but excitement, just knowing that it's finally happening.
I know.
I mean, all the other 8 teams, they've felt that already.
Yeah.
So it's, they've been there, they've done that.
Yeah. We
haven't had a chance to feel that yet for the Alouettes. And my goodness, it's exciting. Yeah. It's really exciting.
So what better way that's the best kind of a segue there, Cliff. What better way to start talking about this matchup this week versus the Edmonton Elk than to bring in our friend from the Turf District, Superfan Mike, and when we finish talking with him, we'll talk about some more about this week's upcoming game. So with this week to preview the upcoming game for the Alouettes, the first game day for the Alouettes in 643 days. That's a mouth in itself. If we ever had a drink for that, or have to have a drink for every single game, I think the person that we have with us to help preview, well, I'm sure he'll join us in a few sociables. It's Mike Knudsen. You also know him as a super fan from the Turf District podcast. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, boys.
And I would say sociable, take it from you guys, but I don't have a drink.
Exactly.
So,
well, cheers to you.
Yeah.
Sociable.
Have you gotten over the excitement of the game last week? I mean, I can only imagine what you and all the newly born Elks fans were going through last week. What was the atmosphere like over at Commonwealth?
It was pretty exciting. We do tailgate for a couple hours before the game. So it's sort of, you get the excitement building. You get there, you set everything up, start serving some food, and just seeing that, CFL family that you haven't seen in some of them in nearly 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, 643 days. And so, it wasn't nearly as busy as I thought it would be, but we still hit over 30,000, which is remarkable since a COVID world.
Yeah.
But it was great. They had massive lines to get in. I think the line was about 2 blocks long just to get into the stadium, but moved really quickly. I had nothing really to complain about with any of the security measures they had.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see some damn football, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you get in there and you went to the stands and they announced for the very first time, ladies and gentlemen, your Edmonton Elks, and they ran out on the field. It was just like, you weren't sure if you were getting goosebumps or you were going to burst into tears or what. But from that end, it just got super loud.
I can imagine. What was the most memorable moment? Something that made you well up, something that made you just scream out? Because there were so many things that the Elks had to do that day besides unveil the Elks. You had all the
100%,
all the different memorials that they wanted to do for the game itself. And I mean, I finally noticed the sticker on the back of the helmet. That was one hell of a touch by the team to do that. And
I think with Joey, that was a thing that got all of us like, you're like, oh, that's going to be great. We're going to see them. We're not going to burst into tears or anything. But when they had the big screen come up and Joey led O Canada to the stadium,
oh wow,
there wasn't a dry eye. I got to tell you, like it was kind of haunting, right? It was just to see him out there singing one more time, leading us in O Canada. It was just a really special moment, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was beautiful.
Do you agree with their memorial sticker and how they did it? Because usually when you see them, it's usually the initials in a circle or something that, that is noticeable on a helmet. But the Elks really went a different direction, didn't they?
Yeah, I think that I really like the way they did it just because Joey isn't just another player. Like he sort of transcended that, I thought. He's famous not only to fans of the football team, but also the Oilers as well. Yeah. Because he was a locker room attendant for the Oilers back when his sister was dating Wayne Gretzky for many years. And that's how he kind of got introduced to it. So Wayne, introduced him to the guys at the Oilers. He started there. Then he came over to the football team side of things. And, the first time I saw him in person after I had moved back was at training camp. And Dwayne Mandrusiak, who's the longtime equipment manager in Edmonton, brought Joey around and introduced him as, ladies and gentlemen, it's a Hall of Famer, because he has been enshrined in the Hall of Fame here, the Sports Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and it's just the outpouring of love for him then and now. It's just palpable.
Wow. I can only imagine what Cliff and I will be thinking in the next couple of weeks when we finally get to sit at Percival Molson and cheer our team, to come out. I guess they're going to be releasing the birds out of the bird cage there, Cliff, I'm guessing.
Big time. I mean,
so it's going to be, I can only imagine what it's going to be like. Before we get into this week's game versus the Elks, what was your thought on how the team played? I mean, when you went into it, was it just a matter of, okay, you're happy for football to be back? Were you worried about how the team was going to look? Was it going to look like a preseason game? Was it going to mirror what the NFL did last year? Because they had no preseason games either. What were your original thoughts going into the game for the Elks?
I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. I was worried at the beginning more about people getting injuries, right? They haven't gone full speed in 600 plus days. So I was worried that this is the first time they've had meaningful contact with another body coming at them at full speed. I wasn't thinking nearly so much about the quality of play, but yeah, I mean, when you started seeing, we had a really solid first start, like we held them to a 2-and-out, then we marched our way down the field, and then nothing from that, right? And I thought, oh, well, it's a little sloppy, but okay, we'll sort of settle in, and it seemed to be pretty sloppy on the offensive side of things. On defense, like, they were lights out. A good friend of our podcast, Kwaku Boateng, had a monster game with a couple of sacks, lots of pressures, and I was probably most worried to see how our run stopping would be, because the main part of our run stopping ability was a guy that you're going to be very familiar with in Almondo Sewell, and like, he's a beast. He takes the double teams almost all the time. I noticed in the last year that was sort of getting shared with Mike Moore, also a defensive tackle in the middle. But Mondo's the man, right? Like, he is one of the greatest defensive tackles to ever wear green and gold, which is saying a lot, because we've had a lot of Hall of Fame guys in that position. I mean, I haven't seen Father Time doing a whole lot of touching on him yet. But I'm a little nervous for our boys here, but I think our run stopping was great in our game. I mean, we held them to 50 some odd yards. Yeah. Absolutely kind of owned that offense and still found a way to make it not happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cliff.
What about James Wilder Jr.? As you know, he was an Alouette in name only, but he made his debut with the Elks. How did you feel about his burst and his overall play this start against the Red Blacks?
I thought he sort of came as advertised. He
jersey and all, short jersey and all.
Well, I was going to say part of his jersey. I tried wearing that look; it didn't quite go over as well. But we were very familiar with him in Edmonton, just because he burned us so badly every time he came to Commonwealth. His blocking is probably his weakest of the three between receiving and rushing. But even still, like, he did all right, but Trevor still was on the ground a bunch of times. So it's something he knows about, and he knows he's going to be working on, but man, he can, when he hits the hole, he can get some yards for sure.
Oh yeah.
And you brought up Trevor Harris, and that's going to be key, I think, for Edmonton to win their first game of the season, is just how well he's played against the Alouettes in his lifetime. Was there any concerns considering the fact that he put up 300 plus yards and still came away with the L?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a new coach. I mean, again, much like James Wilder Jr. was an Alouette in name only, we had a coach in between Jason Moss and Elizondo that was in name only, that has gone down to the States. But, it's a different coach. It's a different coordinators, and we're seeing a lot of that same results. But it is the first game of the season with no preseason. So now that they've got some meaningful film to look at the last week, I'm hoping that they're going to see things turn around. But, we'll see on Saturday.
Great segue into something that I wanted to ask you about. I know you and I have been going back and forth on just this actual topic. Speaking of game film, the Elks go into this matchup versus the Alouettes with none of the Alouettes. Right. But yet the Alouettes, because they had a week one bye, they have game film. In your opinion, which team do you think is going to have the advantage just because of that? I mean, yes aside, the Owls are 10-30-1 at Commonwealth. I mean, they have not, it's not as bad as it is in BC, but still, it's only 10 wins.
Right.
In your opinion, though, do you think it's going to make much of a difference with the Elks not having game film on the Owls and the Alouettes vice versa?
It certainly helps for your team, especially on defense, knowing what those offensive tendencies are. But I think a lot of the problems we had in week one were execution more than scheme. It certainly seemed to be where I was sitting. Mm-hmm. You saw guys dropping the ball. The interception was off the fingertips of Shai Ross, then ran that back. And if you secure that ball, that doesn't happen, and we have a different result maybe. It's just they need to get the timing together, and having film isn't going to help. That being said, I think that, we haven't seen Vernon Adams Jr. play in, almost 2 full years. So that offense, they've had a lot of time to put a lot of wrinkles in there. So I fully expect to see a lot of, not necessarily trick plays, but certainly things that we haven't seen before, and they can maybe take advantage of that.
Yeah, and it's the return. It's basically the return of Vernon Adams to Edmonton since he became Vernon Adams of the Alouettes. When he came in relief. So, Cliff.
All right. When it comes to this game on Saturday, what's the one thing you're looking forward to seeing from the Alouettes as far as being as far as an opponent goes? Like, what are you looking forward to the most, seeing them play their first game of the season?
I'm just glad to see them for the first time. Was able to watch all, the first 8 teams play the last week. It's going to be great to see Montreal coming out there. I'm interested to see how we fare against a much more mobile quarterback than Matt Nichols. That's a potent weapon, and we have 3 rookie linebackers. So that's going to be something that's going to probably be the biggest challenge for the Elks, is facing those options, and not to mention a very different style of running back as well, and probably a more potent one. So if there's ever been a challenge, this week 2 is going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta admit, the running back matchup does intrigue me.
Yes.
Technically former Alouette versus a guy who balled out in 2019, left, and then came back. They brought in Wilder Jr. because he left.
Yep.
So, I'm very intrigued to see that matchup, even though they're not technically going head-to-head, but it should be fun.
Right.
As games go, obviously, there is always a little bit of, I don't want to know if I can call this sportsmanship. This is trying to get under the nerves of certain teams. You were talking about Sewell before.
I think you mean gamesmanship.
Thank you. I don't even want to call this gamesmanship. This, to me, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, but this could also almost border on bulletin board material. I don't know if that's the case. It's not like what Bo Levi had last week. But for Sewell basically to say about Trevor Harris, you can hit him one time and he starts folding.
Right.
So what I think
it's like a little shot across the bow, for sure.
He also said that I didn't play for this franchise. It's a brand new franchise. I think he also was quoted in saying he didn't play for the Elks. So I think it's still a little bitter also too when it came to the renegotiations. But anyways, I digress. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I love El Mondo. When I had a chance to get the locker room sale years ago, his is the jersey I wanted to get, and I managed to pick up a game-worn Mondo jersey, and it's absolutely trash. The wear on it is absolutely crazy because he's right in the middle of everything, and I just love the way he played. I've always sort of liked those how do you say, like more less celebrated positions, right? I never got jerseys of players that were the star receiver or quarterback or middle linebacker. I was more defensive tackle than defensive end. I was more offensive lineman, that kind of thing. And just, he's just a beast out there, and there's a reason he's always an all-star year after year. But, he's usually a quiet giant in the middle of the field, but he's mad. Like, he did not like the way he was treated. For better or for worse, I wasn't in that room with him when they were negotiating. He felt he was, not treated with the respect he was due. And whether he was or not, that's between him and Brock Sunderland. But I think this is a special game for him. He's going to go at 110% like he always does, but there's going to be just a little bit more satisfaction in every hit he gives.
Now, talk about Brock Sunderland. As you know, Derek Dennis, Kenny Stafford, these are guys who have been very vocal about their, shall we say, dismissal from the Elks. What are your thoughts on this whole notion of a cultural fit when it comes to the Edmonton Elks?
I think they're trying to build their version of the team. Brock pretty much has his fingerprints all over the team by now. He came in 2017, so it's been, coming on over 4 years. We're in our 4th season under him. But this is a new coach in Elizondo, and he has a way he wants to have this team fit. I don't think every time that a player was left and they were used cultural reasons or a cultural fit. Elizondo was always quick to say that he was a consummate professional. He, did everything we ever asked for him, but they wanted to go in a different direction. So I find that it's just some sort of euphemism that sort of covers a whole lot of different categories on why they might let somebody go. I wish they would be a little more transparent about saying we have a scheme that we want to fit and we want a different kind of player in that. I think that would go a lot better towards a player's ego or reputation if you went with that, because then you're like, okay, well, he's a great player, but we have a different kind of scheme in mind, or we have too many players of that style or whatever, right? So, yeah. But I'm not in the room, so.
Yeah. I looked at, I don't know if you've seen, I didn't see the Elks injury report. Any of the current injuries that the Elks have released so far kind of worry you in any way?
Certainly more yesterday. We had D'Anthony Demery, our starting left tackle from last week, was out with a knee injury and didn't play on Tuesday, but he was back in on Monday, on Wednesday, today. And our Monty Edwards was out with, again, another knee injury, and he was at full practice today. So that's really helped. I really was happy with Scott Hutter, who was our starting safety. We drafted him in 2019. And in training camp, we really thought he could be something special. He really thought the game well, and he needed to get himself in the right position. And in that 2 years since then, he's moved himself into that starting safety position. But unfortunately, he is injured now with, again, a knee injury. So he didn't play yesterday or today. So we're going to see Jordan Hoover is, I believe, coming back in. I'd love to see Jermaine Gabriel in, but he's, again, injured as well. And let's just keep some people not getting COVID symptoms. That would be really, really good right now. I'd love to see Brian Walker back at Sam linebacker.
I want to ask you that question actually is, why do you think and it's because that he was not on the active roster, why do you think that Sir Vincent Rogers did not only come out until after they played that he had been diagnosed with COVID?
I'm not sure. He was the only one. I mean, Calgary had a couple of players and they were mentioned. But Sir Vincent was the only one that wasn't, because he was not on the active roster. So I think a lot of people were starting to wonder, okay, well, is it this guy? Is it this guy? Is, whoever? And Sir V is just the kind of guy that wants to be let it known. I'm double vaccinated. I got this symptoms, but they are much less than other people I knew who've had this. So it's kind of his way of getting people that might be on the fence and saying, listen, go out and get that vaccination, because it can make the difference between severe repercussions getting it and more mild symptoms. So I think that might be part of why.
Do you think it's why do you think the Elks were as quiet too? Because they weren't being transparent about it, was because he wasn't on the active roster?
I think so, yeah. I mean, they're only talking about, listen, we have to have this guy in COVID protocol because he's starting Sam linebacker.
Yeah.
And I mean, originally on the injury report, the day of, it just said illness. And it wasn't until the next day that they switched that to COVID protocol, right? So, thank goodness that they finally have it out there. But I think that they just need to really get that being more transparent, especially now that we're really pushing that, single game betting.
Yeah, no kidding. Cliff,
I'm also thinking too with COVID protocols being what they are, and so many false positives that have come about as well. I guess it's just a matter of just really playing it safe, like better safe than sorry kind of situation.
Yeah, because we actually had a coach that there was 3 people that were that had come up as positive, and one of them was a coach, and then he went to the PCR testing, and it came back negative. So it was a false positive that first time with the quick testing. So I think that you want to get people in front of this and saying, okay, this has come up, they're going to be retested, and we'll go from there. But baby steps.
Cliff, I don't know if you saw the injury report for the Alouettes. I think for me that the 2 names that really stand out to me right now that are on the injury list is Patrick Levels. He did not practice today. He was limited. He has a finger and a hip injury. It doesn't go into much specifics. And I'll say Dante Absher. He was a full participant, but he also has a hip issue. So there are others on here: Jermaine Grace, Criff Favoroso. God, I'm not pronouncing that properly. Alexandre Dupuis, and
former Edmonton guy.
Yeah, and Rashad Ross. Did I forget anybody? Jermaine Grace. Jermaine Grace also. He has he was limited with an ankle, Achilles. Yeah.
Well,
It is.
without question, Absher would definitely be one of the biggest concerns, along with Levels, because Levels, we know we're expecting him to be essentially the captain of the defense this year. So hopefully his issues are minor, and it's more precautionary measures than anything else. Absher, I fully, as I've said before, I fully expect him to become a superstar in this league, but I don't want him to blow anything out during the first game, as you said, being played in like 600 plus days. So if he's not feeling 100%, I'd prefer he just sort of hang back, maybe don't make the trip to Edmonton, because Lord knows there's other great receivers in the lineup for the Alouettes that can pick up the slack and do the thing. But I guess we'll see how tomorrow's practice goes, and that could end up being the deciding factor.
That's true.
Did he have limited participation today, or was he full?
Hold on, checking again. Who are we talking about?
Absher.
Absher, full participant with hip.
Oh, so he actually did fully play. So.
Yeah, he was the only one. The only person who did not participate at all was Chris Favroso, foot injury. So, yeah.
Do you guys like the new reporting for injuries?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely think it really lends to the transparency, which this league has not always been the most adept at doing.
You don't say.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the thing is, with other teams, though, I've noticed that other teams are actually posting it on social media, and I'm actually checking now. Do the Alouettes actually make this known? That's what I'm checking here.
I haven't seen it myself. I mean,
no,
I know the Elks.
Yes, they did. They did it as we're taping here. They did it early evening. They actually did post it.
Okay.
So not as pretty as the other teams, but it's there.
It have to be 5:00 Eastern time. I think they have to have it posted, right?
Oh, this one. I'm just going by date. It's 3 hours, so it could have been before that.
Right.
So, I know that we both want our teams to win, obviously. But,
Sure.
What do the Elks need to do in order to win this game?
I think on offense, they have to have some red zone production. Obviously, it's great getting 400 some odd total yards in a game, but if you're not scoring a touchdown and you're the only team in week one that didn't score a touchdown of all 8 teams, that's something you need to fix. Like, you need to either change the way you're doing it or like start throwing in some wrinkles, something that's going to get the ball in the end zone. On defense, I said it earlier, like, we have very much a rookie linebacking core, so you have to really watch between Stanback and Vernon Adams. Like, those are 2 incredibly powerful weapons with their legs, and if they start running some options and you're a young 23, 24-year-old linebacker out of college,
right?
That's, I think that we've been burned before in the past with experienced guys. With rookies, it could be a long day on the field for that defense.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it works out, because our defense has been tooled a little bit, obviously, with the loss of John Bowman, but we did gain some stuff here. We still got Greg Reed. Dude, I mean, that guy can ball, I swear.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the offense. Kind of Cliff and I had talked about it more in this episode anyways, but I hope it doesn't look like a week 1 preseason. I don't think it will, but the Owls have been lucky in camp. They really have, as far as injuries go. So I thought it's interesting too, though, that according to Bet Regal, that the Elks Owls game has the highest over-under at 48.5.
Interesting. So that gives me some scoring.
Yep. Currently, the Elks are a 1.5 point favorite.
Oh, interesting. And that's a home game, so virtually a toss-up.
Yeah.
As close to a pick 'em as you're going to get.
Yep, that's true. Hey, what do you guys have coming up on your pod? I mean, everybody knows you're a part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. You guys had to retool, obviously, with the change of names and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, what do you guys have coming up in the future on your podcast?
Well, I think we got some special guests coming at our next recording, which is actually tomorrow night. You might have heard of these guys from the Alouettes Flightdeck, so we're looking forward to that. Otherwise, it's just the 3 of us on there. I think that, you guys are special enough guests. We don't need any other else.
We're special, all right.
Exactly. So, looking forward to that. We're back recording once a week. Normally we record on Monday nights, but Andrew was out of town, so we're back on Thursday night this week. I love being back weekly. It's great seeing football games and talking about it a couple of days later. It's been an exciting time. We're all video now. So last year we were an audio only podcast with a little video 15-minute intro before we started recording. And it's been fun. It's certainly lots to learn in doing a video podcast, but I find it flows a little better. Before we would do bits and then edit, all the things in between. When you're video, you can't. It's live.
I know.
So yeah, exactly. So it can be sometimes a little nerve-wracking, but all the fans are. Yeah, all the fans are pretty forgiving for sure. So we just love getting a chance to interact, especially when you're doing a live podcast and you have people typing in questions or comments and everything else. Tim, I see you there all the time, and it's great. I love the interaction. Getting a chance. It's not quite an ask me anything kind of thing, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm just looking forward to getting back to talking football regularly again.
That's cool. And as I say, I know we'll be on the pod. But for those who happen to listen to this before they watch you guys, I know you have a show and tell each week.
Yes.
Can you give us a tease just for the fans who want to tune in?
There's a few things. I've been very lucky in my collecting of Edmonton football memorabilia, regardless of the name, and I managed to get a couple of pretty cool items this last week. Including an item from 1973. People that have seen pictures of what goes on behind me might have an idea of what that might be. So I'll be showing that off on the hoard and tell, as we call it. Just a chance to sort of see, some pretty cool items that are out there, and hopefully people like it, the segment, and the feedback's been great.
So I'm expecting very, very shortly, Mike, that it's going to be the Turf District Hoard and Tell, sponsored by Got Junk.
Yeah, pretty much. We'll be on A&E before you know it.
A and double E.
Oh, right. There we go.
Ooh, I like
That's
it.
That's nice.
A&E.
Better trademark that now before Cliff does.
That's right.
Patent pending.
Yeah. Anybody who wants to get a hold of you, Mike, how would they do so?
Well, they can obviously get a hold of the podcast at The Turf District. That's our Instagram. That's our Facebook. That's our Twitter. Or if you need to, want to get together with me and chat, probably the best way is at 56 Parkies on Twitter, on Instagram, on pretty much everything social media related.
Cool. Well, I think we said this last time you were on. We will be enemies for 3 hours, but after the fact, we can all share a drink.
Exactly. Friends off, and then we're back on.
Exactly. Take care, Mike. All the best to you guys over at the Turf District, and we will hopefully see you very soon.
Yeah, very soon.
Always great to have the guys on from the Turf District. If you haven't been watching their pods, you really need to, because, as we talked about at the very end, not only does Mike know, Edmonton football history, but his collection is just wacko. I mean, I wish I had the space for what he does. But him, Andrew, and the Commissioner Kayla, give him a listen. It's well worth the time.
Absolutely, it's always a treat to talk to Mike. You feel the passion in his voice when he talks about Edmonton football, and that's going way back from decades. You're talking decades of football knowledge when it comes to superfan Mike, and to see him fully embrace the Elks, everything about the Elks, and going forward in this new era of the team, if you will. It's exciting to see, and it's just going to make for a very fun atmosphere out in Edmonton for the Alouettes to play in. I was really hoping they'd get that first win for their fans out there, so that maybe they wouldn't play so hard against the Alouettes and let them get their first win. But you know what? The cream always rises to the top, and I think regardless of the outcome, we're going to get ourselves a very exciting, fast-paced, fun football game.
I hope so. One more thing that Cliff and I wanted to bring up was about this, betting in the CFL now. We wanted to at least mention that, as everybody knows, I mean, you can listen to our whole entire historical archive over at alouettesflightdeck.ca, and then including some other places where you can listen to the podcast, any of the aggregates for podcasts, including our new YouTube channel, which is the audio version, and we hope you guys will check that out. And at Cliff, I think there are quite a few places where they can go listen to, the big name places where they can listen to the podcast if necessary. What are those?
Oh, I mean, you name it. I mean, we've got, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Tuned In. As Tim said, check out the YouTube if you want to, if that's how you digest podcasts.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do so as well. I mean, like, there's certainly no shortage of places to be able to download the podcast. By all means, check out the website as well, www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You could always find the podcast there. Mm-hmm. But if you're one of those types that, you know, you're loyal to your certain podcasts and your podcast formats, by all means, just type in Alouettes Flightdeck. However you listen to podcasts, I'm fairly confident you're going to find us there. So,
and if you head over to alouettesflightdeck.ca, you'll see a little bit of a tweak to our website. So there
you go.
We finished that up. I think it was late last week. And finally, not only do we have a giveaway, but because it is the first time that the Alouettes are going to be playing football in so many days, we have to mark the occasion with a special discount code for our merchandise store. So if you go over to teespring.com/stores/Owls and use the promo code FlightCrew, FlightCrew, at checkout for a limited time through Sunday this week, you will get a 15% discount on your entire order of any of the lines of our flight deck merchandise.
So, that's awesome. And tell you what, folks, we've had a lot of people buying the merchandise, and we appreciate each and every one of you that has done so. If you haven't yet, this is the time to do it, because 15% off, that's a heck of a deal as far as I'm concerned. So make sure you use that promo code FlightCrew, which is in honor of all of you great listeners. As far as I'm concerned, this is the flight deck. We're the captains of this ship, and y'all are the flight crew. We want you. You come on board with us. We appreciate you. You show us the love by purchasing this merchandise. The least we can do is give you 15% off, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, the least we can do is nothing. But you know what? We're going to do one better than that. We're going to give 15% off.
That's right. Now, as we know, it's becoming a big thing now with betting in the CFL, and I think it's hard to believe that there are actually lines, game lines that are on the CFL.ca showing the over under and the whichever team is favored. Mm-hmm. It's something that Cliff and I did back in 2019, where we were in New Jersey and
Atlantic City to be specific.
Atlantic City, and we decided, you know what? Hey, let's go into the sports book and put some money down on the Alouettes to win the Grey Cup, and that's what Cliff and I did. We weren't able to go to Atlantic City, obviously, but we decided to go ahead and put some money down. And at first, I think, oh yeah, they had this new thing for the CFL where we can go in and put down our bets, and Bet Regal's the big thing that they're pushing, and it's like, oh wait, it's a free site. Even though that there are the laws that are in place of that you can do it on a game by game basis, I guess not everything is set up. With the league partnering with Bet Regal, I think, oh yeah, no problem. But it's a huge difference. We found out betregal.net versus betregal.eu, I think it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, couldn't do it. So we had to go other ways. Cliff and I both had other means. We went to two different sites to bet for the Alouettes to make it to the Grey Cup, to win the Grey Cup. And what we did? Mine was I think mine was 100 to 1. 10 to 1. Mine was 10 to 1. You get the same odds?
Yeah, essentially it was 10 to 1 odds, which, I mean, it's kind of funny because when you see these initial lines and you're sitting there like, wow, they have no faith in the Alouettes whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And God only knows why. I mean, it's understandable. Hamilton would be the odds-on favorite to win the Grey Cup this year. I get that. That makes sense. Winnipeg, defending Grey Cup champions, I definitely see them getting a lot of action. Saskatchewan, well, Christ, everybody's going to bet on Saskatchewan because that's just what it is, right? I mean, that's they're the oil that fuels this league of ours, whether you like it or not. But see the Alouettes all the way down in the lower tier, if you will, of football teams. I'm like, wow, you really have no faith in Vernon Adams. You have no faith in Kahari Jones. Did you not watch football in 2019? Did you not see what the Alouettes did? So you're just going to give your money away. Okay, you know what? No problem. I have absolutely no problem taking your money. Fine, I'll gladly take those odds, please. Please, sir, can I have some more?
Yes.
I mean, holy cow! Okay, Ottawa, BC. I can understand the disrespect for them because Ottawa had a 3-15 2019 season. BC Lions this year, there's a lot of question marks with them as well. So I get that, but the Alouettes, what? Mm-hmm. Well, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around them being one of the bubble teams. I think Edmonton and Toronto are the other ones that a lot of people either have a lot of faith in or absolutely no faith in as well. It seems like of those three teams, Edmonton, Montreal, and Toronto, those are the, like I said, bubble teams as far as futures betting goes for the 2021 Grey Cup.
Yeah,
and I'm mystified, quite frankly. I mean, all three of these teams have made tremendous progress as far as improving their team. As far as I'm concerned, they will all be competitive this year. But it's just the absolute disrespect. And to me, I'm just laughing. I'm like, okay, no problem. If you want to do the Alouettes like that, that's fine. Now I'll put a few. I'll put a few bucks down, and again, come December 2021, I got no problem taking your money, folks. Yeah. Simple as that.
Did you find? Obviously, it'll get better, but did it sour your experience in any way, being able to bet on these CFL futures, knowing that even though it is available, that we weren't able to bet on these things in Canada? I think you could, because what's funny, us being in Quebec, there are some places that we can't bet at even though they're in Canada. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly. I think Bodog's one of them, if I remember correctly. Because there are three. Well,
yeah.
There are three main ones that we've seen so far, other than Bet Regal, that teams are promoting and advertising with. So just watch the games last week, and you'll see it's more than just Bet Regal. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for you, neither of us are bettors, but when it becomes available next, I'm thinking next year that there'll be single games. Will you be more or less to bet more, or will you do it more often, or will it just stay the same? Because we're just betting on the futures themselves, not on a game not on a game by game basis.
Right, and I think again, once all that becomes implemented as well, and I think this year is kind of a bit of a launching point for that. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure this will be a chance for them to sort of iron out the kinks and anything that could possibly go wrong as far as betting goes, whether it comes to the futures betting or being able to bet on actual games in real time as well. Yeah. I know that's the one thing that they've talked about with the passing of C-128. That's the single game betting law that's about to become official law here in Canada.
Yeah.
Once that gets passed, I think a lot of things there's definitely a lot of movement that's going to happen, and I can't help but wonder if these current sites like Bodog and Bet Regal and all that, a lot of it is kind of a soft opening as far as allowing people to participate in CFL games, as far as being able to. I think the idea is in time we're going to see these prop bets pop up a lot more, and being able to bet in real time, and yes, also being able to bet on the Grey Cup and who's going to make it and such.
Yeah.
It's very much in its infancy, but I definitely see the potential in it. I definitely see how much fun it can be. especially now with people paying more attention to the injury reports, because this is what it's all going to lead to, is people want to be able to place a bet on one game, ideally. They may want to bet for their favorite team to win a game, or if they've got a favorite player, bet on that player. Yeah. And, for example, like how many yards is Bo Levi Mitchell going to throw for? Is he going to break 400 or not?
That's what they were doing on the pregame show, which I like. They're doing on the pregame show this week. They're doing all the different prop bets and stuff like that. So it's obviously the networks are going all in. At least with the league and TSN. I don't know what they're doing on RDS. But everybody seems to be going all in on this thing, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. Especially too with ESPN still sort of carrying the TSN feed as far as any sort of pregame shows or anything of that nature. If fans in the United States start watching CFL and they start betting on it as well in their own local sports books and all that, like the CFL doesn't necessarily get that money, but it does generate interest. It definitely generates viewership. And now all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of people in the States that suddenly give a rat's ass about this Red Blacks versus Blue Bombers game that's going on a Thursday night. Yeah. Whereas most people unless you're a fan of either of those teams, you may not be interested. But now all of a sudden you got some skin in the game. Now you want to see, you know what? I'll wager $50 that the Red Blacks end up, I'll take the over for the Red Blacks kind of thing.
For sure.
Just to see if it pans out. Like for a lot of, I joke about this, but a lot of degenerates down in the States and even up here in Canada, they'll bet on just about anything. That's what's going to help generate that excitement for the CFL. Is it okay? I don't know anything about these teams, but I think this guy, I'll throw down $20 on this. I'll throw 20 down on who's going to have more passing yards, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
like that's going to be part of the fun and part of the interest. And eventually, I see CFL teams embracing this and allowing you to place bets while you're at the stadium, like having a kiosk set up for those very things. Like, so you can bet on how many yards Vernon Adams is going to throw. You can bet on how many times William Sandback's going to get the ball and what the final score is going to be. Stuff like that. Like, I mean, just interesting stuff like that. And have it all done in real time is going to be huge.
Oh, for sure.
And I think it's going to help generate so much interest from outside sources that normally wouldn't give the CFL the time of day. To me, that's what I'm really curious about. I can't even begin to wrap my head around just the potential that this has, and it's huge. And as far as I'm concerned, the fact that the CFL, TSN, all of these other parts of this league are embracing it and now helping people sort of get educated on it, because there's a lot of people they really don't know how it's going to go. Like, I mean, you play like Proline or Mise au Jeu, as they call it here in Quebec, and you have to you do what's called a parlay. Like you're basically picking at least 3 teams to win, to lose, whatever, and it's based on that. But everything's got to pay off. Like everything's got to fall into place.
Which did this week for two fans betting. What was it? Betting the Red Blacks in Toronto. They came away with $1,000 on that parlay.
Yep. So there you go. So, and that's great. But I mean, a lot of fans just want to bet on one game, and now that they'll be able to, again, the potential for this to become massive is there. It's right there for the taking. And if the CFL can find a way to profit off of this, like this is one of those things that's just going to help ensure the league's stability for years to come. It sounds crazy to think that a bunch of degenerates are going to help profit the CFL, but you know what? By any means necessary. That's how you really got to look at it. And you know what? If this gets more eyes on players, it gets more butts in the seats, I don't see the negative to it.
Yeah.
And the fact, I don't think the CFL is, I think now they're starting to realize just how huge this can be. And they're jumping in with both feet. For sure. I think it's great. And I'm really curious to see how it's going to go. I'm personally curious myself to see just how far this can go and just how is this going to change the way that you and I and your average CFL fan watches games going forward.
Exactly. Well, even if you don't have any skin in the game this week, we are just so pumped to be able to watch the Alouettes for the first time in so many games, but for the very first time in the 2021 season, the Owls will be on the field and we will be watching. So make sure ESPN, I think it's on ESPN Plus, TSN, RDS, however you're going to be listening or watching to the game, we want to know. We hope you have fun, and we want to know what you're going to be doing and what you think about it. So you can reach us on at Twitter at Alouettes Flightdeck. Let us know you're watching the game. We're going to be there with you, Alouettes Nation. We really are. So, Cliff, enjoy the game, my friend, and we'll be back and talk about post-game stats, feelings, thoughts, and on what we hope will be the 1-0 Montreal Alouettes. So,
here's hoping.
Here's hoping.
I think we've earned it. I think we deserve to go 1-0 this week.
Yep. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.